First off, we want to thank Emiola for letting us work on this project, and we also want to thank all of you for giving us all the feedback over the past 4 weeks. We're excited to share our ideas and research with you today on the NVEST Africa project. We are Cyclops Design. I'm Joe.
I'm Trish.
And I'm Matt.
Just to kick things off, we're going to walk you through the agenda for today, which will begin by reviewing the project brief and challenge. We will then walk you through some of our research and insights we gathered from talking to users, followed by how we define the problem through our persona, problem statement, and design principles. And then we'll go into some of the concepts and ideas we explored along with the testing, followed by our final solution to this project. And then we'll end it with some future considerations to consider as you move forward. So to begin, we want to kind of revisit the project brief and go over our main challenge for this project, which was to develop a digital onboarding experience that addresses the requirements of corporate social responsibility departments and academic institutions and their skilled volunteers. We also want to let you know at this point that our user research did lead us to focus specifically on the skilled volunteers of the CSR departments and the academic institutions, but still solving for the main goals, which were to engage volunteers that have these valuable skills and experience, helping these institutions and organizations match their employees and volunteers with relevant embedded opportunities, and ultimately create long-term sustainable change. So as we began this project, we dove into the research, including domain research, competitive analysis. We talked to users and subject matter experts, and had a few goals that we'll kind of walk through here. But before we got into the research, we outlined 3 main questions that we wanted to answer. How do we stand out from the competition? So we found that it is a crowded marketplace. There's a lot of matching platforms and places for these volunteers to contribute or volunteer. We wanted to find out, why would a corporation or academic institution utilize this platform rather than sending students or employees to their own platform? How can we provide additional value to them? And then what do these skilled employee students need and want? We had an assumption that their needs and wants were different from that of just a common volunteer looking to just contribute on a weekend here and there. So we began to try to answer question 1 through our competitive analysis, where we looked at a variety of competitors and factors, and a couple things stood out. We noticed a lot of the competitors were very focused on the individual volunteers and skewed towards the quantity side versus quality, where they were really going for sheer numbers of volunteers and numbers of type of projects that they could join, rather focusing on higher quality, lower amount of opportunities, but higher quality projects, and not as focused on the corporations and universities, which gave us kind of insight into where we felt NVEST should position themselves to really stand out among the competition. We then started talking to subject matter experts. So we talked to 3 subject matter experts, including Emiola, and as well as a director from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and department head at DePaul University. Our goal here was to really understand how the volunteer process works within big organizations and just some general domain knowledge, and ultimately where we can provide value to answer our second question. We identified a few different areas that we thought NVEST can provide value. Finding relevant opportunities that align with the organization's values and their employees or students' skill set and needs. The partner vetting process, which we found to be very important, but also time and resource intensive. And then project organization and communication. From talking with the subject matter experts, it sounds like some do this better than others, but it's a key piece that we might be able to provide additional value to them and help at both the stakeholder and volunteer level. So we then, we also talked to several users that fit kind of our target user, which they all had valuable specialized skills and also extensive volunteer experience. And our goal here was to really understand what they look for in volunteer opportunities, what their experience has been, both good and bad, with past projects, and then any insights they have on working through a corporation or a program through like a corporate social responsibility department or an academic institution. And we kept hearing a few common things. They all mentioned how time was hard. They have demanding careers, but they want to work on these high impact volunteer projects, but it's hard to balance that time. We also heard that they all do a lot of research into the volunteer opportunity before they join. They want to know the scope of the project. They want to know if the organization is legit. They want to make sure their time and skills are put to good use. And then we actually found that none of them had participated in a corporate social responsibility department type program or a program through their employer or through university. But when we asked them about it, they all said that it was something that would be appealing to them and that they would love to do that because it would help them better balance that time between their work and volunteering efforts. So with all this research, we began to synthesize and try to pull out some of the insights. And we had 3 key insights that we used as we move forward through the project. 1, focus on quality over quantity and the unique needs of CSR departments and university programs. Insight 2, these skill bonds, we need to help these skilled volunteers with the struggle between balancing time between their career and volunteer efforts. And 3, really help them understand the project's scope, impact, and how it aligns with their passion and skills. And at this point, we also started to get a seed of an idea on what if we pivot the platform to match volunteer opportunities to companies and academic institutions instead of individual volunteers. So we'll talk about this a little more as we go on, but for now I'm going to hand over to Trish to talk about how we define the problem.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, so from our initial research and our user interviews, we were able to find common themes, find different pain points, and then from there, we were able to define the problem. But before we get into that, we had to ask who our user is. So let me introduce you to Daniel. He's our purpose-driven specialist. He is a software developer in Chicago. He has lived in the States for a couple of years, but he has roots in Nigeria. He's volunteered remotely, being able to utilize his software developing skills, but he hasn't had time because of his demanding work schedule. So some of Daniel's goals are that he would like to contribute to a cause that he believes in, while also being able to utilize his skills to create a long-term impact and also understanding the expectations and goals of the project that he's working on. Some of his motivations are helping places that he has a connection to, developing personal relationships, and then also being able to align his skills and passions to that project. Some of his frustrations, again, balancing his work life and volunteer life, finding and vetting opportunities, and also the lack of structure and communication. And what influences him are time requirements, being referred to different projects by friends or by word of mouth, and the location of the opportunity. So with that, we define our problem as purpose-driven skilled specialists need a way to discover and learn about employer or school-approved volunteer opportunities that align with their skills and passions because they want to give back but find it difficult to balance time between their demanding career and high-impact volunteer efforts. From there, we were able to design 3 design principles. So the first design principle is connect why and how. So we want to be able to communicate why and how the volunteer skills match the mission and the needs of the organization and project. Trust and confidence. Through a thorough vetting and matching process, we can ensure that users' skills and time are being put to good use. And then finally, informative and transparent. So through this process, we want to be able to set clear expectations and outline details about partner organizations, background, and the project needs. So after we defined our problem, we got into the fun stuff, ideating. So we, as a group, did a number of brainstorming activities to come up with a nice range of concepts. And from there, we were able to narrow it down to 3 that were relevant to our onboarding process, but also that went back to our design principles and problem statement. So these are our 3 concepts: Afani, Investa, and Connect Africa. Starting with Afani focused on the onboarding process integrating the LinkedIn shortcuts. So it would pull in the user's profile, their experiences, their skills, and use that to match them to relevant volunteer opportunities. Investa, this gave control to the companies and the universities. So it would let them create teams, invite their employees or students to specific projects, and they would be able to access that via custom code. And then Connect Africa. So volunteers would go directly to their company or their university page, and that would outline the approved volunteer opportunities. And then that employee or student would sign up or join a project by entering in their work or email or school email, and then they could enter in their volunteer preferences. So from our concept testing, with Afani, we found that users liked the LinkedIn integration, but they wanted more information on how it worked. Also, as much as they liked this shortcut, surprisingly, most of our users, they only manually signed up using their email. They didn't actually use the shortcut. For Investa, users weren't the biggest fans of giving their companies or their universities full control over their volunteer decisions. They would rather have more control over that. And also on the company and university side, it would require a lot of heavy lifting because they would have to input that information for each employee or student. And then Connect Africa. So users really liked to be able to see volunteer opportunities through their employer or their university, and they also really liked to learn about opportunities prior to signing up. So with that, as a group, we decided based on our testing and our research that Connect Africa would be used as our base concept. And we would take our insights from, our positive insights from Afani and Investa and incorporate it into this base concept. And from there, I'll pass it over to Matt to talk about our usability testing.
Thank you so much, Coach.
I was making sure you guys think.
Whoa. So from our concept and user tests, we developed, we get to see it again. So from our concept and user tests, we developed several features that align with our design principle and problem statement. Then we did usability testing to test those features as well as our product overall to see how users were understanding it. So we wanted to test we wanted to test the homepage to make sure that we had a homepage that when users went to it, they were able to easily engage. We wanted to find out how to make the sign-up process as easy and enjoyable as possible. We wanted users to be able to preview projects because that's something we found out during concept testing, that they wanted to be able to see projects before they signed up. We wanted to test filter options in case users were ever confronted with a long list of volunteer projects that they needed to filter through. And then we wanted to check wording and copy throughout the entire project to make sure that our wording was clear, understandable, and we remained transparent. So for the purposes of this presentation, I'll just be going through the homepage design and the sign-up process, as those two are the most important to the digital onboarding experience, which was in our original challenge. So for the homepage design, we were looking at whether we should target the design toward companies or toward volunteers or toward both. So on the left here, we see we tried a dual-focused homepage with a toggle that had call to actions that focused on both the companies and the volunteers and allowed users to toggle through how it works to see how it works for every user. So users liked that ability to swap between the how it works, and they liked the big how it works taglines, but they found the call to actions a little bit confusing. And then we tried a volunteer-focused design, which was a lot simpler and focused only on marketing towards volunteers and would have a separate company page to be developed later. And users liked that copy a lot more, and then they liked the aesthetic look of the icons. For the onboarding flow, we wanted to find out how fast to make it and how customizable to make the onboarding flow. So the first onboarding we tried was a module-based onboarding where users would sign up through different modules and they could see what place they were at during the onboarding process easily and clearly. Users were able to enter their skills and preferences. So users liked the ability to see the whole process in front of them, and they enjoyed the ability to add skills and preferences before they completed the onboarding. Then we tried the opposite of that, which was a one-step onboarding process where users would enter their skills and preferences later on in the profile and wouldn't have to do it during onboarding at all, and it would just be a single page. And users liked that fast and easy process, but they didn't really get as excited as they did when they were able to enter their skills and preferences beforehand. Then we tried a two-step onboarding process, which had users entering their user information first, and then entering their skills and preferences on a new page. And users liked that all the preference options were on one page, but thought it was too busy and too long, like a long survey. So from concept testing and usability testing, we developed a solution that aligned with our design principles and solved for our problem statement. And so first I'll go through the task flow so you can understand how the entire product works, and then I'll run through the solution from the point of view of an employee signing up for the first time. So the corporations and the universities get connected to Connect Africa either through Invest Africa or through the main homepage. They sign up through their individual onboarding flows, and then they create a dashboard through which they can approve volunteer opportunities. And then employees can, they promote to their employees who can select a link.
Just letting you know you've reached 15 minutes, so this is where we would stop.
Okay.
But
Thank you.
we'll let you continue.
Okay.
I'm too busy taking notes, but yes.
Where was it? So they promote to their employees, and then the employees can either click links or go directly to the site and select their company to sign up. They can view opportunities from their employer before they sign up or sign up directly. The same can happen with the students. How do I play it? And so here's I'll run through as a first-time employee signing up for the platform. I don't think it's playing.
Oh,
It's
okay.
playing.
Yeah.
You might need to just press one more time and then
I think
okay. I see the
yeah.
mouse. Oh, wait.
No, I think it's-
I think that's.
There it's playing. It's playing. Okay, so this is the home page. You can see there's easy step-by-step on how it works for the volunteer with icons and text. There's success stories. You can see what projects have already been completed by other companies, and then there's a place for nonprofits to learn more, and then a place for you to learn more about current partner projects, what projects current partners are currently working on. So for now, we'll just click the sign up button to get started. So here you select your company or university, select designation, and then we'll enter our name. Connect Africa checks whether you're actually an employee at the company or a student at the university by checking your email. You can see we have a designation email address. Then we'll enter our password and confirm our password. You can see we can tell what phase of the onboarding we're on and how many phases of onboarding there are at the top second there. We'll click next. Here we can see all the skills we can add. We can search for skills, but for now we'll just click accounting and click next. Here's the preferences. We can see what preferences we can do. We can do whether we're on the ground or remote and our time commitment, and then we'll click sign up. Here you have the dashboard. This is the personal dashboard. We can see the current projects that you're working on. You can see tooltips that tell you how to use the platform. And then you can also see recommended projects that have been approved by your employer or university. You can click My Information to learn more, or to view your settings and change settings such as skills and preferences. You can go to your feed to see updates on the current projects you're working on or projects that you've already completed. And you can go to Messages to check if you have any messages through the Connect platform. And so to go through a company dashboard, we're going to select our company and click View Opportunities. This is the company dashboard that you would see before you signed in. You can view different opportunities, volunteer opportunities that the company currently has for offer, and then you can filter those if there's a large amount of them. You can go to About Connect Africa to learn a little bit more about the platform and what it's all about. You click the company overview to learn about the corporate social responsibility mission and the company policy about things like this. You can go look at past projects that the company has completed to get inspired, and you can see what other employees are currently volunteering on Connect with that company. And so for now, we'll click Learn More about a project to learn a little more. We'll go to the project page. Here we can get all the information we need to be confident about signing up for that project. We can go to the project impact to learn more about the impact of the project and its mission. We can learn more about the nonprofit that is hosting the project and what their mission is, and then we can learn more about why your employer has partnered with that project and why they've approved it. Then we can learn more about who's volunteering on that project. Then we can click Join Project, and we'll be presented with a sign-up. We'll go through the sign-up that we just went through. So for future considerations, we want to do additional research on corporate social responsibility departments and academic institutions to find out what they would want through their end of this product. Then we want to develop the onboarding flow for them in the best way that we can using the research that we did. We want to figure out what is public and what's private information for the company page so that we're able to confidently display information to new users. We want to further explore the feed feature because we think that's a unique and innovative idea to get people invested in projects they're currently working on and projects that they've already completed. And we want to develop a mobile website so this platform is available anywhere in the world. Thank you. Any questions?
What are we clocking at?
1932.
Oh god, we were running at 17 during so I'm a little longer.
Maybe because you weren't speaking as fast as you should have, which is good. You had a good, you definitely had a good kind of cadence. So I wouldn't speak any faster though. Okay, yeah, grab your notebooks, and we'll record feedback on this thing too. Maybe I'll take minutes. And we can also, I suppose we could probably go through that like we normally do.
Yeah.
So if you want to keep
Is
that
this
up
on?
there. Yeah, that's on, for sure. We're going to hear you nice and loud though, if you ask questions. All right, I'll just kind of kick off with saying good job. I mean, you did it. Congratulations. You know you got to cut this down significantly.
Yeah.
I think that's the big thing. Is I mean, you definitely have to cut it down. Overall, I think in some cases we can give you some suggestions. I would like to see specifically, on the walkthrough. The walkthrough is very much kind of like a product reveal where you showed us everything. When in reality, you honestly just want to show what's the most effective thing. Like, honestly, we want to tie it back to the persona a bit more. We want to tie it back to the problem statement. We want to talk about what we're solving for. So, Matthew, your section could be cut down significantly.
Got it.
That also means, though, that there's some other stuff up front that could also be cut down as well, too. And it might be more useful to talk about how much more useful your product is by that kind of that. I think you initially showed us that big task flow, which was just kind of like almost a business chart in some ways. Like, you're sort of giving us the huge context of how it operates within a sort of a business environment. That be careful about showing us too much information in that way too. I'm just giving you kind of the stuff off the top of my head because I want to give these guys a chance to talk. And actually, I'm going to back off. But I'm basically going to say I think you guys definitely want to focus a little bit more on the why, which is an easy thing to say. But there's a number of different things where you got some story points, which I'm not saying you need to overly dramatize them, but I really wanted to know why we added some additional features in that. I think that onboarding flow, you guys had sort of like a soft lead up to it. You could talk a little bit more about why you guys sort of did that. Also, I think I'll let you guys go. I'm gonna just let them talk about what they saw as well too. So.
Yeah, so I'd say in the beginning you were doing a nice job of tying back to the why. You kind of talked about you had these 3 questions that you wanted to solve for, and then Joe, in your section, you were kind of like, and we did this, and this points back to this, and I liked that. But by the time it got to your section, Matt, we kind of lost some of that. So I would agree with Doug that you can probably slim down the stuff you're showing in your prototype, but bulk up the reason behind some of these things. I felt like there was a long lead up to the prototype, and I feel like you could actually talk more to the prototype. Like some of the slides you had before the prototype were not landing as effectively as, like, I would like to see some of that information pointed out when you're going through the prototype itself. Because I was kind of like, just get me to the stuff, because you're just summarizing, and then the big reveal at the end. So I think we talked a little bit about it with you guys in the last presentation. Like, there's time after you go through the prototype as well to kind of summarize some things. You kind of jumped right into the next steps. The future considerations as well, they're very lofty, and so and as I know you are not doing any of those things, maybe you'd call them, if you do want to stick with those, maybe they're future recommendations, but they're not. This was kind of a thing that I felt with the Hyacinth too, when I was a critic for the Hyacinth review. I was like really confused when I realized that they weren't actually doing any of that stuff, because I felt like we gave them a lot of feedback about next steps for that on their next steps. So just kind of try to set our expectations of like, these are your recommendations going forward, and maybe not necessarily things you're gonna do, because you're not gonna build a mobile site right now.
Yeah, it's easy to refute. Like, it's not defending anything that we saw in the thing of like, well, yes or no. Sure, of course. Like, if you had more money, you'll build a mobile website, or it's the way you're going to develop it. But it's not helping you back up. Like, if they start poking holes and stuff, they start asking you about certain things that are not being implemented or whatever. Like, that's easily refutable. Yeah.
Yeah. Any other? We could like go through the deck.
Let's go through.
Do you have any like high level stuff you want to comment on?
For the walkthrough, it felt a little bit like a real estate tour of every screen, and I think you want to stay away from that for a walkthrough. And it might be nice to take the perspective of your persona and just really go through a flow, like the most important flow that you're solving, and also either during your walkthrough or afterwards, really hammer on how the solution solving for the problem statement, and or incorporating your design principles, so incorporating the why that way.
Yeah, I had that note too. Just you talked about like the we when you started talking about the prototype walkthrough, and it's very much you want to talk about Daniel. Like Daniel does this, and then he needs to do this, and he does this, and he surprise and delight. Like he gets what he gets this great solution to what he's worried about. Like it solves for his time issues. It solves for matching up his skill set, so he can identifiably know that he's going to be matched up with an organization that's going to allow him to utilize his skills his best, and he's not going to overcommit himself. Like that's ultimately the end of the problem. So in the end of that task flow, like he's going to feel better, and that's the way you sort of want to sort of frame it up. You said I was thinking department store, and you were thinking
Real
estate. Or like over here is a landing page, and here's
For one question, and this is more an idea that I'd like your feedback. So we kind of walk through the different, because like being informative and transparent is a key part of showing like the different elements of the project page. But to shorten it up, should we just say, here's a bunch of information he can look into, and not go to each tab, just like
he
point to
feels
it. So we don't need
comforted
to,
by this.
yeah, because a lot of those are tying back to specific things we talked to earlier, but for the sake of time,
be explicit. Like
maybe
that's a great place to drop a design principle on top of that.
Yeah.
Like drop your trust and transparency like right on top of that. You got 3 design principles that are pretty solid. So like, how can you fit those into how can you reflect those in the features that you're making?
I would say like in a typical sprint review, as this is more of like a presentation, but in my experience, a sprint review is it's scripted as a scenario. So you talk about your user. You would say, and so you can use your persona. Talk about the scenario that Daniel is I was like, wait, what is it? Momo? That's that Daniel is trying to go through. So as Daniel, I'm trying to do this. I'm clicking on the about section because I want to know, understand more about the company or the organization that I'd be getting involved in, blah, blah, blah. You get where I'm going.
Yeah.
You're telling a story as Daniel. So that's often how sprint reviews go, because you're talking about like specific features. So you're actually reading the user story.
did it make sense to walk through both onboarding flows, or do you think we should just do one?
The last one being
We did one where you just like go to the homepage, sign up, and then one where you like check out projects first, do a little research, and then sign up.
I didn't think that was necessary, personally. The 2 different flows. I think
What
you
do
can
you think-
speak to one.
Yeah, what do you think Daniel would do more likely?
Yeah.
Well,
and
in
that's
testing,
kind
we kind of had it
Yeah.
split a lot, so that's why we made both.
Okay.
Daniel would do it one way.
Yeah.
So maybe it's our.
Daniel would probably do the long way.
Yeah. You probably want to show the long way because you've done
Yeah, that's
a
kind
bunch
what
of
we
work
designed
there.
More for him.
Right. Yeah, I mean that would make him most satisfied, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's assume he's a serious guy. So. All right. Who's got the clicker? Should we click through it? Or we can let you do it
Yeah.
if
Where do you
want
want to start?
We'll start at the beginning, I guess. Yeah.
I thought this was a pretty good setup. You were a little rushed. It could be because of the setting. But yeah, just slow down, deep breath. Let us like get on board with your story here. I know, but like you do have time. You just have to cut it elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to get through this pretty quick. You could also break this up into 2 slides, by the way, too. There's a couple. You guys have an interesting sort of format as well. Like there's another one that's not this one, but there's another one coming up that it's sort of you've got the 3 users, and you've got some insights, and if I got the deck, I'd be like, oh, this user had this insight. Like it looked as if it lined up in some ways. You could always break this up into 2 slides, is what I'm thinking. It's like, give us the what, and you can give us the why. I'm thinking from a formatting perspective, sometimes it makes it a bit easier. But this one, like the challenge, I thought you set it up really well. Although Joe, I would agree with Chelsea. I thought practice this one. This is like the least practice I've seen you so far. And no big critique, but you sort of like, it felt like you were trying to get through it in some ways.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Next. So I guess though I liked this, I wonder how effective this is. Did either of you think anything about that?
It's a bit of a business case for this. So if we're thinking about this from your initial test plan, like your initial research plan, standing up for the competition is kind of a universal truism that we want to make sure we stand out for sure. I think number 2 is kind of derived in some ways from the creative brief. So it's kind of like, essentially it is kind of like you have to sort of solve for why a corporation or academic institution would use it. We're supposed to be developing for it. Yep. So it's kind of like, okay, this is an answer to the challenge. And I think ultimately, skilled employees, you could probably scrap all of these. I totally agree.
Yeah, you could just like not do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you speak to it in maybe like the next slide. I mean, I feel like this, this is,
We
you
kinda
don't
say it.
Yeah, you kind of say it all here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the best way to do it is to just get rid of that slide.
Get rid of it. Okay. And then I had a note down here too. Just you have a talking point for each one of these things. It might be useful to procedurally show each one of these groups, like show each quadrant.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, because
show each quadrant as you speak to it, and if you need to have any sort of bullet points or any sort of information about that, like that makes it easier to summarize it. I thought you spent just a little bit of you probably spent a little bit more time you needed to on this, but you had some really good insights. But it was like when I looked at this, I was from a visual perspective, I was trying to make sense of where things were at and trying to make some inferences on my own.
Yeah, I think the stuff that you said in the last slide is kind of what you say over this.
Yeah.
And you said something about individual volunteers, and I was like, individuals? Like, so I think you need to unpack the word individual.
Yeah, make sure that they understand volunteer focus first.
Yeah. Because, or put that up there if that's the terminology you want to use, because I didn't quite get it.
You just add individual volunteer focus.
I could speak to it differently.
Okay.
I mean, and usually sometimes with a Foursquare, like you exist within it someplace, like you're positioning yourself somewhere. There you go. Thank you.
Sorry,
I would just,
forgot
speak to these points about quality and quantity too. Because, I know what volunteer match is now, but I don't know what most of those are, because I know what Habitat. I think just if you unpack those quadrants a little bit about like what they mean, that would help. Next.
I think they're kind of aligned to skills in some ways too. Is that true?
Some are more so than others.
Okay. Yeah, like copies of that borders would be sort of up here someplace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, more like
Okay.
This was fine.
Yeah. I was thinking that was the one where I was like, oh yeah, there's these people, and then like the 3 points came on. It could be useful to split your opportunities onto a second slide and then bring those up, just to try to isolate our focus on.
Did you guys think that?
Hit me with the bullets.
I mean, it's not a direct. It's like you got a divider line, but I'm just like, in order to emphasize your opportunity.
Yeah, I guess
like
it could
isolate.
easily be on 2 slides. Yeah.
Yeah, the extra slide doesn't cost that much more.
But where does opportunity area, is that directly related to the SMEs, or is that just related to users?
these were areas, kind of things we discovered through like SME.
Through the SME, yeah.
Yeah. I actually debated like whether we need this slide even, to be honest. But I feel like we need to talk to.
I mean, I think you could maybe scrap the opportunity part, put SMEs next to the users, like talk about all the people that you talk to.
And then just
like
combine.
talk about interviews as a whole, like you did SME interviews and user interviews, and then talk about what came out of those broadly, maybe, like unless they were very different.
Yeah, there's two different types of information that are coming out of this. Like you sort of presented the SMEs, and you sort of had these sort of concrete sort of.
Well, that
takeaways
SMEs you were kind of positioning as answering question 2.
to the prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this was answering more question 3 through the user interviews.
Okay.
I kind of spoke to that, but I think you caught it. But
Yeah, but I guess like I had some notes here of like I liked how you were verbally referencing a question, but by the time we're here, I've lost that question. Since you've already decided you're going to scrap that, I think you can summarize all of this in a way that doesn't point back to something.
Yeah.
I liked these quotes, but I think you should read them verbatim and then talk about them. Because what you were talking about did not match what was, you were synthesizing the quote, or summarizing the quote, but I was like, I need to read it.
You could also categorize them too. I was thinking like you've got time, you've got scope. You can explicitly sort of put something at the top too.
Yeah, we thought about doing that.
That's okay.
Mhm.
Or even put an icon, like put a time icon, put a, I don't know.
Helps you guys like
Yeah.
remember that too.
I think we gave you, I'm not too sure if this is useful or not too, but we've chosen to pull out their professions here, but we don't know much more about them. So, and we're not talking about, when you show Daniel, you're not giving me sort of his age, you're not talking a lot about stuff. We're just sort of like, this tends to support the idea that you have a skilled volunteer, but we don't know a lot more about the user interviews. So, do you guys feel like we need to see more about these individual interviewers?
I don't even think you need that, truthfully. I think you can just say you talked to 5 people.
Okay.
You could just say you talked to 5 potentially skilled volunteers or something.
Yeah, that's what we're.
Because these don't tell me anything about
Them.
about
Yeah,
them.
we like going into it more just seemed to take too much time. That we didn't know if it added that much value.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you could just like if you do decide to summarize the SME and the user interviews. Yeah, struggle.
What
with
if so if he talked with, you said to read the quote and then talk about it or then speak on it. What if we like had whoever said the quote like their job as like who said it?
I think that's just going to confuse your message.
Okay.
Yeah, the
I
architect.
think you
one,
say
yeah.
like
Just keep the
user.
quote, let
Yeah.
them.
I mean, you could if you don't want to read all the quotes, if that's too timely, maybe you have one page with a bunch of quotes on it and you're kind of speaking to them because then it's like less of a
Yeah, I'm even thinking, like you said, combine a slide that has who we talk about our interviews, SMEs and users, and then just like one slide on like the insights. and
yeah,
quotes.
like if there's I mean if you have what 3
Yeah.
I like the idea of like using an icon. I mean, I could kind of go either way. Like maybe what you did was totally fine, but I always find that like when somebody puts a quote up there, it's like you want me to read the actual quote,
Yeah.
right? And if you're immediately talking over it and I'm wanting to listen to you and read the quote, then it's a
It's just
disconnect.
Yeah. Yeah, I think my issue, probably with listing all their professions, or even, putting it next to the quote or whatever, is that we're trying to make an inference between the profession and what they need.
Yeah.
So then we start sort of splitting our focus between what it is, and I think there's too much data out there, in my opinion. So it's like, do the quote, give a first and a last initial name or something, and then if you can talk about really what it signifies, which is the time scope and the whatever the other thing is. Then you give us a launching pad for the next step, which is like, what are we solving for?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, our design principles, because all of these reflect all of that
Yeah.
stuff.
All right, we're giving you 15 more minutes of
Let's go,
feedback
let's go quick, right?
Okay.
because we started at
Yeah.
1:15.
Yeah.
is it valuable to say that we kind of had the seed of an idea here? We were
Should
back
we
and
make
forth,
it? Should we make it bigger?
or do we even?
I think it's
need to
its
say
own
that?
slide if it's important. That's what I wrote.
Do we need? Is it that? Do you guys think that that's helpful to know here? Or
Yes, it's the most important. It's the most exciting part of the present. Like I go,
Okay.
this is my exciting part of the presentation.
Yeah,
Like,
but
we
I did find it a little jarring that you seeded it and then walked away from it. Like seed it more or don't seed it yet, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you mean more like more?
Because like you just kind of were like,
And
Joe,
we'll get more back into it.
yeah. And then you handed it over to Trish, who didn't talk about it, and then you never were like, remember that thing we talked about? Like, so, yeah.
see it.
Definitely doesn't live in the bottom of this page. It's definitely its own thing if you're going to talk about it. And I feel like either you give me a little bit more here, or like Trish comes back to it.
Yeah, it needs to come back to it.
Like,
Okay.
fairly soon.
Well, you kind of do in the problem statement. We say we kind of address
Yeah,
it.
but I don't really like talk.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you need to bring it back there for us.
Maybe we should we move it to closer to the problem statement so we can reference it?
Figure out a setup. Like, just figure out a setup.
I like a teaser.
Yeah.
I'm into that. But it was you hardly teased me. Like,
I was going to say the handoff was really nice, though. It
Oh,
was
good.
Like, it was such a nice, thanks, Joe.
yeah.
Like, that felt good.
To be honest, that's like how I've been practicing it too. I've been like, thanks, Joe, just like talking to myself. Okay.
But figure out a way to
We'll
bridge
figure
that.
it
Yeah, we'll-
Figure out that bridge. So.
Yeah.
I like that you felt teased, so that's what you're going for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
A
that's
little
good. Did you like that these
Yeah.
were separated? We from our last feedback, we like split
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
up.
I thought
I think
this
that
was
was
good.
good.
Okay.
I feel like I got to know him, but yeah, bring him back into your conversation as it gets to
Matt.
math segment. I like that you read the problem statement. That was good.
You could bold a couple of keywords out.
Yeah, I liked you had that at one point. I liked that.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah.
We got a mess. We were bolding like
'Cause it's,
as
like,
key
too
parts, but then it
much.
would change the formatting, and like as you would bold, it was like moving words to different lines.
I would
Yeah.
personally prefer if it wasn't centered, but
Oh, yeah.
It's not a bad. At least you change your breaks.
it's not terrible because it's large. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you bolded school approved volunteer opportunities or whatever, then you make a direct tie in
Oh, yeah.
to the previous thing. Like, look how you can make those bridges between like the problem statement and that. You know, Joe hands it off and we forget all about what he said. So we need to see it. We need to see you guys put it into action. This is you doing it. So Daniel is a bit of a he's a bit of a break. So you have to sort of figure. You know, if you set it up and say, you know, we'll come back to this later, or like, you know, do something. Figure out a way to bridge that thing. And these are directly correlated to a lot of those insights that you got out of the user stuff. So, yeah.
one thing that I wrote down is that you said something that was like, "This is who our user is," and I think you need to say, "This is a representation of our users."
Was that when I introduced Daniel?
I think so.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, because I said like we had to ask who is our user.
yeah.
So like Daniel's a representation of our
I mean, these people know what a persona is, but it was just a minor thing that could be confusing. I personally find that like the word user in our field is and so if you're not very explicit with your word choices around who the user is, like is it user research, is it user synthesis, is it whatever, there's so many, user comes in so many places. You just have to be very careful about the framing of the term. I liked these. Nothing's changed there. Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
I think it's like, yeah, it's straightforward. You talked well to them each.
Oops, sorry.
I was wondering though if, like, go to the next slide. If you could just, I think this is fine. Keep going for a minute. I mean, I'm into it. I think it's like the rest of yours is like really pretty serious though, so don't just do it to be funny for funny's sake unless it's like really gonna be a part of your delivery. You know, you're kind of like,
I can still try to think of a funny way to do it.
or you could not do it, it's fine. Like,
Yeah, I don't know.
it's up to you.
I mean, we liked it. It just added that, keeps everyone awake. People are like, oh.
Yeah.
We were just kind of like, how do we do this? And
Yeah.
then we put a lot of errors.
And then we didn't want to do
Yeah.
that anymore, so we figured.
I guess more so about like trying to think how you can simplify the concept, the different concepts, and talk more about your converged concept. Because I feel like that was
It was more of a
really spread out your converged concept explanation.
Too much information.
Yeah, it was a little TMI in the. I mean, I like your breakdown of each individual concept, but if you go back, like, I just wonder if all of these and the next is not just like one page.
Yeah, go quicker.
Just like go quick through all of it, like talk about what Afani was and what were some insights, what Investa was. Like, can you put that all on one page and make it super simple? I don't know. Maybe you use that like split screen that you do and you can have 3 for each one or something. I don't know, but you spend a lot of time on this. Then you also spend a lot of time on your converge concept, and it seems like give me the highlight reel of the concepts, give me more in the converge concepts about how you got there. It doesn't really impact me a lot, but I understand. I like it. You need it there a little bit, but it's kind of a lot. Do you want to keep going? Yeah, so I think you need to talk about oh wait, is this about testing the concepts?
This is about
Once we decided on Connect Africa, where we started to focus and test new.
I think here's where you give me the converge concept. I want to know that, and then can talk about these things. Flip through this like homepage design.
For this one, I think it would have been useful to call out which sections.
We talked about that, yeah.
But just this one, I think the
The
next
next one's pretty straightforward
Yeah.
though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to keep going?
I just don't know if you need this one, honestly.
Should we just not talk about like the specifics that we tested and talk about the converged prototype?
Just like the
post-user
areas?
test?
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like, cool. This is very tactful. I don't think people outside of this group really are gonna care so much about this.
So,
You could probably just talk to some of the stuff we tested in a little more detail, and then we don't even like.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like this. I don't know. It's just not to me, but to others will seem boring.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think we basically want to show you guys that we did something the past week.
I believe you. Yeah, you don't need to do that for this.
We believe you did.
I mean, this could be maybe something after the prototype,
This is telling us.
Or is this needed? I don't know.
or yeah. I wrote no, but I do like it.
Too much information. More TMI.
Yeah.
Like from a visual perspective, like this is like in order for you to present it, like it's deep.
Yeah.
But what it does, the whole thing that it signifies that you're thinking about a big business model. Like this is like the overall thing that says this is how we might think about it.
I thought Emiola would like
Oh,
this.
this is great actually. How do we simplify it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we spent a little bit of time talking about it, and you sort of progressively disclosed each arm of the thing.
But do you think this could be used as a summary after the prototype?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like this would be a nice wrap up. I don't know.
There's also one question that you guys didn't necessarily like super address. Like we found out that users, how much are we doing time wise?
5
5
more minutes.
5 more minutes. Okay. I think when you presented concepts and you were thinking about, especially yours, Matt, when you presented yours, it was like, well, honestly, you tested with volunteers, but ultimately it was a product that was more or less likely for a CSR. And then one of your future states is also saying that you want to test more, develop more with CSRs and academic institutions and stuff. I think this kind of lays out sort of like what the product should be in some ways. So it's useful to her. Like she's going to want to see this. I think you could use it as an addendum or even as a future state. I think that's a good idea. Putting it at the end.
Yeah.
And then figuring out, you might want to sort of progressively disclose what you built already and what can be sort of, like this is kind of just like a big picture thing. And what you built kind of, it works in this way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we basically built the purple.
You built the purple part, right? Good, then you can talk about this as a future, that second thing is a future state.
Okay. Is it still like, is this how we should present it, or do you think we should like simplify it somehow, or do you?
It's a lot of information. You know what? You could simplify it. You could have like you could have just three circles. You'd be like bip, 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 and what we need to do is sort of like connect the two.
Like maybe
I think-
super simplified task flow.
What about so you have join project, but what about the like my feed thing? I feel like that's kind of missing from here. Like there's a re-engagement circle that's missing.
We were thinking
or
this is more onboarding.
Yeah.
Right.
So re-engage, there would be like probably a whole nother task flow of like ongoing
I see.
engagement, but this was specifically on how the corporation university onboards and then how the employee and student onboards.
Yeah. The My Feed is kind of an interesting thing because it's like it's a little jewel in your prototype that is different. Like it's a motivator thing, and it didn't get called out enough in some ways.
We debated that quite a bit, and we kept coming to that. It didn't feel like it was core to onboarding.
It didn't really answer any of the challenge.
Oh, it didn't. Yeah, it didn't. Align
Yeah,
with
so it
problem
kind of was
statement
like
and the other stuff.
Yeah, it's a good idea, but it's not.
Like they want this like long-term impact, and they like that idea, but it wasn't like core to the.
That's okay. Did you? It came from user research though. Yes.
Yeah, like the idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was. I forget if any of his goals or his pain points was not. If he wants to have an impact,
Yeah.
but maybe you want to expound on that and say, wants to have lasting impact, or talk a little more about that. In which case, we would give it a justification for being.
Yeah. Maybe if we cut down on the walkthrough, you could spend a little more time on it.
Yeah, I can stop and be like, oh, Daniel is ecstatic at this page.
Yeah.
Through the roof. Now
Yeah.
that he's got a feed, and you can see what he did last summer.
Keep going. Is it just the
And then
prototype?
this is the
We'll
prototype.
cut down to one, which will
And
save a lot
that's
of time.
the-
Yeah.
Department store.
Maybe if, can you go back to the task
Yeah.
map or task flow? Yeah. Maybe if you do simplify it, you could add that jewel portion of the feed or somehow add like how it's affecting the user. Like it's re-engaging, that's what you said, yeah. Re-engaging them from this feature or this screen, and then it's onboarding them in these flows or these screens. Does
Yeah,
that
kind of re-engage them, puts them back into like.
Yeah, so that could be another
That's
thing.
really
If you're
cool.
simplifying like 3 circles, you could somehow incorporate it that way at the end, then it's clearer to us. I don't know if I'm making any sense.
No, I get what you're saying.
Okay.
It's like kind of like a loop almost.
So,
Yeah.
like to be continued at the end of our presentation, kind of for the user.
I was gonna say,
Never mind.
did the feed get tested at all, or was it just kind of like?
We in the last week we were discussing ideas. We didn't we ended up focusing on
Yeah.
specific features.
In future state, if you sort of think about it as a re-engagement loop or something like that, like your future state would be further testing on the feed,
Yeah.
like further testing on content, further testing on the mechanism, like any of that stuff. That feels more like something that you sort of say is like a really interesting part of this thing, and we'd like to see how this really kind of works.
Mhm.
Yeah. 50 seconds.
We'll change future recommendations rather than future considerations. Is there anything else we needed to change on this one?
No, I'm just wondering how Emila's going to feel about the first two. She's like, oh, but that's what I wanted you to do.
Should we
That's
take
okay.
those off?
No, it's true. It needs to happen.
Then I'll have a box of tissues next to her desk. It'll be fine.
I think we still got her some value out of it, though.
I talked to her this morning. It's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I just get to engage with her more. And there you go, Mike Wachowski.
Too much.
You're going to keep him there, huh?
We want
Why
to.
not your Cyclops?
Yeah, your
He is a
logo's even
Cyclops.
I know, why not your Cyclops, your
I guess
beautiful
we could do that.
Cyclops that Pranav?
I think we should put Pranav.
Nobody
We
was like,
should Photoshop him with the Cyclops.
Just have him squint at you.
have this guy like wave in from the side too or
Oh
something.
my
I don't
god,
know.
that's so funny.
Alright.
Alright,
Alright, we're done.
nice time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Random question. Last week when it was final presentations, we all get that presidential
Oh, the alert?
Yeah.
alert?
Yeah.
Oh, it's so weird because I don't think we